Hey Gabriel, let's take a look at your latest set of essays. Father's staying home, mother's working, reasons, and if it's positive or negative. Let's see what you wrote. Over the last few decades, parenthood has been evolving to an equal activity. Yet some people, careful with your grammar here, yet some people still think about separate roles. No, here. Yet some people still think that separate roles for mothers and fathers are better. I strongly believe that it is absolutely legitimate that fathers want to increase their participation in their children's care, and mothers want to have more access to job opportunities as well. This essay will discuss the reasons and aspects of this issue, using examples from the UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate and describe the argument. All right. I didn't really like this very much. This essay will discuss the reasons and the aspects. I didn't get that. What do you mean the aspects of this issue? I just thought it was a little strange. This is one of those instances where it might just be better to stick to the template and use the language from that. So this essay will discuss the reasons behind this trend and why it is a positive development. All right, that for me would have been a nice way to say that. And this too is a little strange. We're using examples to demonstrate and describe the argument. Why? Is there only one argument? No, there's probably multiple arguments here. So I thought that was kind of awkward as well. All right, so good on the whole, but there was some awkwardness. All right, so let's move on. On one hand, parenthood should not be seen as the previous generation did. These days, roles of fathers and mothers are more equal than ever before. All right, again, there's some problems with your grammar here. Let's see if we can fix this. On one hand, parenthood should not be seen as in previous generations because these days roles of fathers and mothers are more equal than ever before. Okay, so you need to have a better link here. And then grammatically that didn't flow correctly because you have a passive voice here and then you have an active voice here, so that just doesn't work. Okay? There are several reasons behind this, starting by the fact that you don't need a comma here. Over the last half century without of, the cost of life has skyrocketed is the word, not rocketed. So the cost has skyrocketed, pushing women to go out looking for an increase, not increase alone, but an increase in their family income. Thus, women have made significant advances reducing the gap of opportunities. I don't understand that, reducing the gap of opportunities. Reducing the gap of income, perhaps might be better, but that's still a little strange. So actually the collocation that we most often use here is the wage gap, or the income gap even would have been okay. So that would have made more sense. Let's see. So thus women have made significant advances reducing the wage gap. Many of them were restricted by the fact that motherhood, I don't understand this either. Look what you've done here. You've got one sentence here. You've got a totally different sentence here. But the only thing that you did to kind of link them was have a comma. And you can't really do that because you have two very, very separate ideas in these two. Here, look at this. Wait, let me do it a little differently. So, yeah, you've got two. What is going on here? Hold on. Okay, so you've got two really separate ideas here. Let's look at it again. Many women have made significant advances reducing the gap of opportunities. All right. I was focusing on the wage gap, but I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there was the opportunities themselves had a gap with minimal opportunities for women and many for men. It doesn't really create a collocation that feels particularly natural, but perhaps you do, in fact, want to focus on something other than what I thought you wanted to focus on, so perhaps we can leave that. All right, let's see. And then many of them were restricted by the fact that motherhood was seen as a woman's main role in society. All right, yeah, so it's not enough to just to combine these two with a comma. You've got to do a lot more. At the very least, what you could have done is you could have had a semicolon, and that way you're showing that these two ideas are connected somehow, but they don't certainly fit in the same sentence with just a comma. Alternatively, maybe you could have had some other linking device here, some other sort of linker. So let's see what you could have said. Thus, many women have made significant advances in the working world that were not possible before because many of them were restricted by the fact that motherhood was seen as women's main role in society. Okay, so I had to add a few extra things there to connect these. Let's continue. As a result, men also have had to change their approach to fatherhood in order to support the equalization of roles within the family. To illustrate this, a study by the UK government shows that 85% of fathers would prefer to spend more time taking care of their children instead of working, not being working, instead of working. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that both mothers and fathers should be allowed to share children's care and job responsibilities. Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute. On the other hand, some people believe that the traditional roles must remain the same, which means that mothers take care of children and fathers go out to work and provide economic support to the family. This argument is based on the old belief that full-time dedicated mothers are better at, no, not upbringing, but are better at raising children because fathers are not capable enough. However, it should be highlighted that recent studies from Oxford University demonstrated the positive effects of fathers' participation during the nurturing process. Hence, children raised in environments with parents in equal positions showed significantly better social skills. Okay, grammatically this was a lot stronger, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the development of this in a minute. Let's get to your conclusion first. To conclude from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the fact that fathers take more care of children and women have more job opportunities should be encouraged. It is predicted that this trend will increasingly grow in importance through new generations. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. Let's look at the topic again. It's saying, what are the reasons for this? Is it positive or negative? So, fathers are staying home, women are working. So it's a total shift of our gender roles. Why is this happening? Is it positive or negative? What that means is that the easiest way to analyze this and the easiest way to do this is to spend one paragraph talking about if it's why it's happening, okay, and then spend another paragraph talking about whether it's positive or negative. So I was pretty happy with the way you developed it. You more or less equally covered why women are working and why men are staying home. So that was fine. But this paragraph I thought was totally irrelevant. It didn't ask you, this is not a discuss both views and give your opinion type of essay. It's a 2-question essay, and so you really need to spend one paragraph answering each of those questions. So that paragraph should have been devoted to, is it positive or is it negative? Now, according to what you wrote here, it sounded to me like you thought it was positive. So I didn't really understand this paragraph. It was underdeveloped and it was developed inappropriately because you weren't supposed to be talking about the other side of you, but you were only supposed to be talking about why it's a positive step, okay? So, yeah, there was a problem with your task achievement. As a result, there was also a problem with coherence and cohesion because it didn't also fit with, the whole flow of the essay. So those 2 scores would certainly be affected by this type of development, okay? So think about that, and let's take a look at this one about rainfall. The line graph presents the levels of precipitation in England, Scotland, and Wales from January to December of 2018. Overall, it can be noticed that the 3 countries have significant fluctuations throughout the year. However, each one has different patterns of variation. Whereas Scotland and Wales showed remarkable fluctuations, England remained comparatively more stable than its fellow countries. All right, that's fine. You didn't have to write all of this in your overview because, to be honest with you, this answer does seem kind of long to me. So you could have economized a little bit. I probably would have just said this. So overall, whereas Scotland and Wales showed remarkable fluctuations, England remained comparatively more stable. I thought that was more than enough. You could have left that sentence out, but it's fine, really. I mean, it's good, but it's just because I see that you wrote a lot. You could have just been a little more, um, efficient with your writing by not including all of that. Let's see what you said. Scotland started with a significant precipitation of more than 100 millimeters in January to drastically, not decay, that's definitely the wrong word. Decay is like what happens to like teeth when they go bad, or like metals might decay. Anyway, but definitely not rainfall. You could have just said decline or fall. So to drastically decline to less than 20 ml, 25 ml in February, and then in March reached the highest overall rainfall with nearly 140 ml. The following months registered the same pattern of fluctuation with lower variations. Okay. So what are you telling us about Scotland? You're giving us one piece of data, two pieces of data, and then three pieces of data. Okay. In contrast, Wales started January with less than 50 and kept an intensive fluctuation throughout the months with a registered peak of 130 in July. Notably, Wales showed a dry 3-month period. Well, a 3-month with no S and then dry period would have sounded better, with less than 50 ml from August to October, which established a different pattern compared with the other two countries. All right, that's good. Let's see. Okay, fine. Comparatively, England stood out from the other two as the most regular within the period presented. In fact, the country did not show less than 75 ml during the entire year, which is considerably more than the lowest rainfalls of Scotland and Wales. However, England could not reach more than 125 ml, which is less than its fellow nations' peaks. Okay, so I like a lot of this. I like a lot of the grammar. I thought you wrote really well. I can't say that I agree with the information that you selected. What we've got here is we've basically got the snapshot of a year in terms of its rainfall. And I felt like you probably didn't include as much information as you should have. I like the way you treated Wales by focusing on this plateau. That was smart. I'm glad you did that. And I like that you talked about the beginning of each of them. I also thought that was a very smart thing to do. But I felt like you really missed out on some of the important parts of this graph. So to show you what I mean, you're basically looking at a story, okay? And it's the story of rain. So when you hear a story about whatever, what are the important parts you want to hear? Well, typically we want to hear the beginning of the story, the end of the story, and then those key points in the middle. So what are those points? There are around 5 to each country. You would have to be smart with how you mention them. But, for example, for England, it's point 1, point 2, that low point, and then 3, 4, 5. So how could you talk about it? You could say that England started at 100 and whatever that is, 110, 115, 120, I don't know. Maybe about 110. And then had some fluctuation before reaching its lowest point in May at 75 ml. For the rest of the year, it had 3 peaks of, what is that, 125 in July, September, and December, never going below 80. Okay, and then you're done with England. For Scotland, what would you mention? You'd mention point 1, point 2, point 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so yeah, for Scotland, you would say something like, it began in January at 120, which was the highest for any country, was the highest rainfall of all 3 countries in January. However, it had a dramatic drop the next month to 30 or whatever that is. And then it reached its first of two peaks in March, okay, at whatever number that is. For the next few months, it had considerable fluctuation before reaching its second peak in October at whatever that number is we said. And it finished out the year at 105. Done. That's it. So that's kind of how I would talk about these. And you could do something similar for whales, of course. So that's how I would approach this. I would just talk about those highs, those lows. Obviously mention that there's fluctuation throughout the year. I like that you mentioned that plateau. That was important, and I'm glad you did that. But yeah, I mean, just those are the key points here. Think about it as a story, especially when you are looking at a year, okay? So, or like 10 years, for example, and you've got, information like this. All right, so I hope that's helpful. Let's see more work from you. I'm looking forward to it. I noticed here you did something interesting. You've got your error list, but it looks like your error list refers to this particular this particular task. The idea is for, you to hear the corrections and then write down the error list from the things that I point out to you. So that's probably a good habit, unless you started it like this and then you're waiting to hear what I have to say as well, and then you'll add. Maybe that's what you're doing. All right, so go ahead, write more essays. I'm looking forward to them, and best of luck.